Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer. You can find us on podcasts everywhere, of course, Facebook Live, and you can see the recorded episode on Facebook as well. And then in a day or two, we'll have videos posted to YouTube. Like for you to consider subscribing to those videos and clicking the little bell so you get a notification every time a new video is posted. Then you can listen to videos all the time to help you discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. And today we're talking about seniors, senior care, warning signs that a senior needs additional care. We're also going to talk about 5 diagnoses that could require a senior to need more care. And we'll talk about Sharyl's experience with guardianships and when a senior absolutely needs a guardianship and maybe when a senior doesn't yet need a guardianship. But first I wanted to talk about Movember. No, you might be familiar with No Shave November, but Movember with an M is an annual event involving the growing of mustaches during the month of November to raise awareness of men's health issues such as prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and men's suicide. The Movember Foundation runs the Movember charity event housed at Movember.com. So I have a team of other guys that are growing mustaches, and we're raising money for this organization. And one of the guys in the office, William, he said, "Why do I want to donate to Movember? What do they do?" And I said, "That's a great question, William." So I looked up their tax return from 2019 and discovered that they contribute grants to other charities like the Prevention Institute, which is to provide funding for mental health services and programs, UCSF, Department of Urology, to provide funding for prostate cancer research. So there's a whole list of organizations that Movember contributes to, and I just use it as an excuse to not shave. I hate shaving. But we'll see what happens. So, Barbara, you meet a lot of seniors. You've been doing this for a long time. You've met a lot of seniors. And so you've probably kept mental notes of what are some warning signs that someone's going to need help. And I think this is a great time of year to watch out for warning signs when you're visiting your loved ones at Thanksgiving and Christmas. So tell us your perspective on these warning signs.
So I can remember that my dad, I would see him maybe once a year, twice a year, and then through COVID I didn't even see him. And when I would see him, when he would come to visit, when he was able to, the big changes I saw in him. And my brothers and sisters that lived locally close to him didn't know what I was talking about, because they saw him every day, and it was just kind of gradual to them, so that it really wasn't as big a deal to them as it was to me. So going now into the holidays, and you're going to be doing some visits, probably family visits, you may notice that someone isn't quite up to par like they were last year, or things just don't seem right, or the house just isn't looking clean, or there's a lot of unopened mail laying around. So we have gathered together some of the warning signs that you may notice this holiday. And if you notice any of these, it's a good time to address them, not at Thanksgiving dinner, of course, at the table, but privately, one-on-one, or with the older adult's physician, if you have a relationship with the physician, and to discuss some of these things that you're seeing. So one very obvious one is the weight loss. If you notice a big weight loss in a family member when you're going to visit, that maybe they're missing meals, or they're having sporadic eating, or a loss of appetite. So these things are warning signs. They need probably a doctor's attention. Somebody needs to look to see, why is this happening?
Find out if
Is it
there's
something medical,
right.
or what is going on? You know, are they having mobility issues? What is causing that? Another warning sign would be a disheveled appearance, poor personal hygiene, body odor, poor oral hygiene, changes in skin and nails, or wearing soiled clothing. That's another big warning sign. They're not keeping up with themselves. They're not, things that we do every day without thinking, all of a sudden are becoming a challenge to this person. Why is that happening? Is it something medical? Is it something cognitive? The unkept home.
You have to be confrontational a little bit to bring that up.
So first I suggest being a detective to see if you can figure out maybe why that's happening before confronting them, to see if it's something that you can figure out and maybe gently bring into the conversation. If you came up to me and started talking to me about my body odor and my unkept appearance and my dirty clothes, I mean, that's pretty personal, pretty sensitive. So you need to be very gentle in how you approach the subject matter.
Cheryl, have you had to see that before, somebody being confronted?
Absolutely. And I agree with Barbara. A simple way of being the detective is just going into the bathroom. Excuse yourself and go into the bathroom. Look at their medicine bottles. When, are they
expired or not?
Yeah, are they expired? Are they being used? As we get older, we need the little pill bottles that tell us when to take them in the morning and in the afternoon. Are they taking them appropriately? And then also, like she was saying, contact the doctor. If there's been a weight loss, has the medication been adjusted to that weight loss so that there's not ongoing medical issues coming from that? If you have low blood pressure or high blood pressure, a drop in weight and not the corrected medication with it can cause a series of other symptoms that come from it.
But with your leadership training, what are some other tools or tactics that you could use to make this confrontation not so alarming?
Yeah.
Number one, just be involved before it gets to that point. Don't just wait for the holidays to check in on mom and dad. Know their neighbors. We are in a place in society where families don't live close together anymore. Right. So we have to have a network of people surrounding the ones that we care about and be confident in that somebody else is looking out for them too.
When you say be a detective, I think of Columbo.
I think of Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, well, I love Columbo because he already knows what's going on. But then he acts like he doesn't. He says, I don't understand. Explain this to me. And so I think that's a way of disarming the situation, is just to be curious.
Yeah, and I would say it's very sensitive, because someone is going to jump on the defense right away, more than likely.
Right.
It's none of your business, and I just spilled coffee on this morning. But you're right. The bathroom tells the story.
And the kitchen does, too.
In the kitchen.
In the refrigerator.
Yeah, I would, for my mom, I'd always look in the pantry, the refrigerator, and the freezer, make sure she had enough food.
So for medications, I give them a little bit of a buy on that, because I think anybody over 40 could benefit from medication management. Speaking from self-experience, those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday little boxes are great. But if you're seeing that the pill bottles are still full or they're empty, that's a big sign that they're not, on top of it. They're not getting the refills. And also, sometimes when you go from doctor or rehab to hospital to home, there's an addition and change of medications, and now they may be taking too many medications. It's helpful if somebody gets involved with helping them with their medical appointments, which would come in with maybe having medical power of attorney.
Right.
If you want to explain how that could help, possibly.
Yeah. Well, everybody over the age of 18 should have a medical power of attorney, just in case something bad happens, because even a healthy person like me could have an accident, and then I need to have somebody like my sister advocating for my behalf. And so you have to do that while you still have capacity, while you still have your wits about you, while you can still remember. And so that's another reason you need to be checking in on your parents or your grandparents. Ask if something bad happens, who's going to make decisions for you. And I don't know of any polite way of saying that.
I think it's going to be a challenge if you don't have medical power of attorney unless you have a HIPAA release, to speak to the doctor on behalf of your mom or dad. So getting that lined up ahead of time while everything is good and nothing is really wrong is so important. And explaining to them medical power of attorney does not give you the power to do what? To tell them where to go, where to move, where to live, right?
Well, it's a gray area because assisted living is both medical and residential. So it could be challenged by somebody, or it could be challenged by the person that signed the medical power of attorney. But I did think of something, a polite way of bringing it up. I would say, hey, Dad, I just got my own medical power of attorney signed today. Do you have one? And then he could say yes or no, or I need to get that done, and then at least that opens the door for the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Now, when somebody enters into the hospital, is that kind of an automatic thing that they have somebody that they want on that paperwork to be power of attorney? It seems like when I've gone.
The hospital always asks, who's your medical power of attorney? Do you have a directive to physicians? And if you don't, the hospital, a lot of them, they have their own forms that say who would have permission to make decisions if something bad happened, or to communicate with physicians about the what's going on, the diagnosis. But that might not work at another hospital, and so what we do is we have a general medical power of attorney that would work anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the best case scenario. But yeah, a hospital or a doctor, they ask those same questions. I just like to have one that'll work even for those specialists that I don't know that I need. If I hit my head in a car accident, I'm going to need a neurologist even though I'm under the age of 65.
Right.
So you were going to talk about some diagnoses.
Sure.
So let's come back to the 7 signs a senior needs supervision and go to some diagnoses.
So there are 5 geriatric diagnoses that make it very, very challenging for a senior to live at home through end of life as they get into the later stages of their diagnosis. The first one is stroke. Stroke can be pretty debilitating, and depending on how severe the stroke was and how it affected the person, and if they had one stroke, is there the chance of another stroke coming?
Mm-hmm.
What was the cause of that? Again, medications, doctor follow-up is very important. So stroke.
Sharyl, tell us about some case study or some memory you've had working with a client who was trying to get guardianship because of a stroke.
Oh man, I've got several.
What are some of the symptoms that came up?
So symptom-wise for the stroke, obviously if they're any kind of paralyzed the limbs, speaking, it can affect their hearing, their vision. So we need to be aware of those signs of a stroke, even the minor ones, because like Barbara said, once you have one stroke, the risk of having another is
You got to go to the
greater.
hospital
You've
right
got to
away.
go to the hospital right away.
Okay, well, we have to take another break. When we come back, we'll talk about the signs that a senior needs a little extra help, talk about some of those diagnoses that usually lead to that as well. Stay tuned.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.